Committee meeting for April 19th, 2023 to order. There's no public comment necessary today. Let me lead us in a word of prayer, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this day, thankful for the community we live in and all of the customers that we serve with water and sewer. Father, we ask your blessings on our staff and their families. Thank you for the good work they do in maintaining the system. Father, grant us wisdom today as we go about the work of the Joint Water and Sewer Commission. Help us to always glorify you, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
First item for approval is the minutes from the March 15th, 2023 Facilities Committee meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion they approve as read.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second, all in favor. Motion carries 3-0. Item 2, minutes from the March 15th, 2023 executive session.
Make a motion that they stand approved as read.
I'll second, yes.
Motion second, all in favor. Motion carries. Fiscal year 2024 capital projects plan, Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. So for the last several years, we have presented an annual capital projects plan in conjunction with the fiscal year budget. Each of these projects, before we award any engineering and or construction, will be brought back to you for your review and approval. This is, if approved today at the Facilities and Finance and tomorrow at the full commission, we will simply allocate the funds in next year's budget as part of the capital projects plan. I'll go through the individual projects in a minute, but as a general overview, the project plan is $16.75 million. It comes from 3 different funding sources, and it does not include the Series 2021 bond projects that are ongoing and the SPLOST 2021 projects that are just now kicking off. So there will be additional work completed in addition to these projects. The total 3 funding sources that are allocated here are traditional R&R funding based off of the expected transfers into that account by the end of the fiscal year. We expect an $8.8 million balance uncommitted on 7/1. So I've allocated just shy of $7 million, $6.95 million worth of projects out of the R&R, leaving an uncommitted balance of $1.9 million. That is typically more of an uncommitted, but then we leave it an uncommitted balance to start the year. But given the project overages we're seeing on just about every project we're bidding out right now, I wanted to have some additional cushion. The SIFs is the capital improvement fees. That's from new development fees that come in. Projected balance is around $7.3 million. $6.3 million allocated to projects there, leaving a balance just shy of $1 million again to try to give some space for the existing projects funded by that. And then we have a third fund called the Capital Fund that we fund at $300,000 a year and has been done for several years. We have never spent this funding before, but we have a large project that we need to get completed on the south end, and that's a $3.5 million project. And we are, in the fiscal year budget that will be presented at Finance, we are going to continue to fund that at $300,000 a year, but to date that money has never been spent. That's split between mostly sewer, almost $15 million in sewer, just shy of $2 million for water, $9.8 million on the mainland, $6.9 million on St. Simon. So we're hitting a lot of areas here. The projects, first project here, which would be funded by the R&R, is Dunbar Creek Water Pollution Control Facility clarifier improvements. I've got GIS pulled up here so we can zoom in on these areas and discuss as necessary. The plan for Dunbar Creek. I want to put those pictures on here so everybody knows where we're at. The plan for Dunbar Creek, we have an existing contract right now with a design build team that is working at the plant site to do improvements to the UV filters, aeration basins, and odor control at the facility. They are also making improvements to the roadway off of Sea Island so that that becomes the main entrance. The money that the request to allocate here is to add a third clarifier to the Dunbar Creek plant for a couple of reasons. One, that allows us to do maintenance on the existing clarifiers. Pulling it down to 1 clarifier is a struggle for us right now, and also should the need arise, that will allow us to increase capacity at Dunbar Creek. But to do that is not just adding the clarifier. We will be filling in a portion of this pond to reroute the entrance road a bit. So that will be included to allow for a full 80-foot diameter clarifier to be installed here. So that is all included together there.
I have a question on the
Yes.
clarifier.
Somebody's having a good time.
Are the new ones significantly different in design than the older ones, or it's just a basic kind of, they're all function basically the same way?
I'll allow the chairman to add anything he wants here, but I think the clarifier designs haven't changed a whole lot in the past 20 years.
Right.
That clarifier also is necessary to increase the capacity to 5 million gallons a day.
Oh, yeah, I know that we need that. We need to have
All right, the second project is an R&R project that's called out in the master plan. It's keeping up with those master plan projects, pump station 2001 and 2002 rehab. When we do rehab projects for pump stations, we find that we get better pricing and typically better interest in the project when we lump a couple of them together. 2001 is on Lord Avenue behind the village. It is a smaller pump station, but is in need of electrical replacement, safety grading at the wet wells, and some minor improvements there. And then pump station 2002 is on Arnold Road. We just replaced the force main on that earlier this year. Also complete electrical replacement, new discharge piping and valves at that station, and recoating the wet well there for corrosion protection. Neither one of those stations will be getting an increase in capacity. That's just rehab-based work.
These are ones we're engineering in-house, or?
Pump station 2001, 2002, we will do the engineering in-house for everything but the electrical. We will sub out the electrical engineering for that. But we kind of have a standard electrical design now, so it should be mostly short-term to get that work done. Harrington, Airport, and Mallory Water Production Facility are 3 of the 4 well sites on St. Simon's Island. Master plan called out that they needed complete electrical replacements. The electrical in there is 30 to 40 years old. There's a ceiling repair that needs to be completed at Harrington. We need a new finished water meter at Harrington. And we also have underground storage tanks for diesel storage at Airport and Mallory. And we don't, that requires additional permitting and work on our part to keep track of the underground storage tank, make sure they're not having any leaks or anything like that. And so removing those, and the generators have belly tanks on them anyway. So those 3 sites will have some work done there. That will require engineering for the electrical replacements, of course, there as well. And then 2 major projects at the end here. The capital project I was speaking to you about, that we're proposing to use that funding that we haven't used before, is pump station 3103, which is located in the Royal Oaks subdivision at the exit 29. Currently, pump station 3103, which is right here, right on the side of 17, pumps down the 17, not right away, but pumps down 17 and then goes underneath I-95, discharges into a gravity right here near the travel center. That station needs flow increases due to increased development upstream, both from commercial development and also development at the Georgia Ports Authority. So we have multiple options on what we can do here. What is currently being proposed and will be considered as part of the preliminary engineering when we send this out for engineering is whether we increase the size of the flow on this existing force main. There was flow limited on the force main now. I believe it's a 6-inch force main. Or if we reroute the force main through the Royal Oaks neighborhood and bore under the interstate again and come into the plant, which will shorten the piping distance and reroute that flow off of pump station 3101 right here, which currently has to repump all that flow. And then a third option is to do somewhat of a hybrid option, which would to continue to pump some of the flow this way and pump half of the flow back through the neighborhood and upgrade pump station 3104 as a part of that and repump it from there. So those 3 options we can consider when we get an engineer selected. That will be based off of course, life cycle cost and upfront construction costs to determine what might be the best approach there. And the final project, pump station 4119, expansion in force main. 4119 is located at the end of the spur. It's let's see, what's the closest thing to that? There we go. Did not bookmark these like I should have. It is located at the intersection of the spur and Highway 99. And if you have driven down Highway 99 in recent years, you have seen an explosion in the amount of residential housing that is ongoing along that corridor. And also, we know the proposed Bucky's installation will bring additional development. Pump station 4119 is located right here. Currently, it has a force main that runs down to the existing Gateway Tract property that is owned by the Development Authority, and it goes gravity here, goes underneath the interstate, flows through this very swampy area in the back, and then goes into pump station 4118, which is located at the end of Shell Road right there across from the Morningstar facility. It's then pumped down Shell Road to pump station 4110, which we just did the major improvement project for that force main. What is being proposed, again, we're force main limited to what we can do without having to significantly increase the horsepower at the station, is to install a new force main bypassing this existing gravity along the Highway 99 corridor, come back underneath the interstate, and tie in directly at pump station 4118. Now, what that will do is two things. One, it will eliminate the need to use this smaller force main. It opens up this gravity section to take additional flow from potential industrial development opportunities at the Gateway Tract, and trade winds are also development opportunities back here behind the proposed Bucky's. But if we get the force main in the ground here, when we look at constructing the Exit 42 wastewater facility, which hopefully we'll begin engineering on in the near future in this northwest quadrant of Exit 42, the pipe that is put in the ground can be used to change the direction of pump station 4118 at a later date and pump back through it, and so that flow can be taken off the Academy Creek plant and put to the new facility. Now, that is a very expensive project. It is approximately the same amount of pipe that we installed with the SPLOST project from the North Mainland down Harry Driggers. A little bit smaller pipe, but about the same length, but we'll also have to do improvements to the pump station to increase the flow. Currently, there's about 950 gallons per minute of capacity, and we'll be going to 1,500 gallons per minute with this project. That will require extensive engineering as well. So the only ones that will be completed in-house are the civil and mechanical design for pump stations 2001 and 2002.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve the fiscal year 2024 capital project plan as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second, any questions?
I have a couple, if you don't mind. So Andrew, like the Dunbar clarifiers, I mean, I think of that as like a construction project that you're gonna hire some kind of general contractor to manage. When I look at pump station 201 and 202, I really see kind of two different projects. I mean, one's an electrical scope and one's more of a mechanical / concrete scope. And I just wonder on scopes like that, would it be more efficient to have two totally separate projects, even if they're not done at the same time? Because I see them kind of as mutually exclusive. I might be wrong based off the operations of the pump station. But I wonder if something like that, I mean, instead of hiring an electrical engineer who's gonna go out and design an electrical system to basically pump, if that's the most efficient use of dollars, or would we be better off approaching electrical contractors and having them do a design bid basically and saying, hey, do a replacement of this system for us. You give us proposals on how you would do so. And in my experience, the local electrical contractors are very good at looking at electrical distribution systems and saying, here's how we would upgrade this, here's how we'd replace it, and not going through the expense, the time, and also the gold plating that engineers like to do at times with the.
It could, we've never done that. We could consider doing that, and we'll have to, confirm that we're following the appropriate bid laws to make sure that we can do that. But that's certainly something we could do, looking at this as we start the project. Yes, sir.
And not to, give a recommendation to one or another, but I mean, we're used to working with McKinnis a lot, and they do a great job of coming out, looking at something, saying, okay, this is aging, we can replace it with this, we can give you 10% growth capacity by doing this, and they're, directly involved in the distribution network. They know what's the most efficient gear is, and I believe it'd be a good opportunity to save some money, and I don't know that necessarily you have to have that scope under a general contractor. That scope could probably be done directly for the utility, and then the, what else you call it?
Safety grading, wet well coatings, all those things, yeah.
I mean, it could be a totally separate project, even if they're done.
We could look at maybe separate contracts underneath that for sure. Be worth doing, yes, sir.
If we were to go see some of these, kind of take a tour of them, what kind of time commitment do you think that'd be? I mean, half day, you think we could see the majority of these?
All of these, yeah, you can see all these in a half day. Maybe, depending on how much time you spend at each site, 4 to 6 hours, yes, sir.
I'd be interested in doing something like that. I mean, just kind of one time to see what.
Yeah, the first three are all on St. Simon, but you could hit all of those in 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. depending on, again, how much time you spent at the well sites. And the other two is just the drive time to get there. Pretty straightforward. Once you get there, I'll show you what's going on.
Yeah, and probably you see one or the other. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like you're gonna look at the underground path or something.
Exactly, it's just looking at the stations.
I'd be interested in doing that if anybody else would.
Yeah, we can certainly set that up.
Do you have picked photographs of the pump stations?
Especially as we, it's kinda hard to envision, $1.5 million in electrical upgrade, it'd be worth laying eyes on.
Pull up on Google the water production facilities.
Yeah, I was more interested in the second and third bullet points, honestly, as an electrician.
Let's see, Google might be a better option for us, because me finding it on the server might take a minute. Second and third, 2002, it's located on Arnold Road, right beside Fiddler's.
It's on the same side as Fiddler's too, right?
Yes, sir. Well, there it is.
There it is. It's a control panel and everything's raised there.
Yes, sir, because it's right there on the marsh. I'll be honest, we've gotten multiple quotes in on pump stations that electrical replacements on pump stations are going for $300,000 to $400,000 right now.
It used to be that just to build a pump.
Used to could build a pump station for that, but that's,
$250,000 to build it.
yeah, now you're looking at $300,000 to $400,000 just to replace the electrical.
Wow.
So,
Can you pull up the water production facilities?
sure. Airport well is right here.
Explain to us what's gonna be done there.
We're going to basically go in this building and gut the electrical systems according to the master plan inspections that were done by electrical engineer. They've reached the end of their useful life. They will be complete replacement motor control centers, breakers, VFDs, the whole 9 yards on those pumps. And then there's an underground storage tank that will be removed. It's diesel storage for the generator. The generators we're getting through the FEMA contract have belly tanks on them, so we no longer need that. And when you have an underground storage tank, if you, I forget what the exact quantity, it's a very small quantity, you essentially have to do the same testing that a gas station has to do every so often to make sure their tanks are not leaking.
Yeah.
Point out where the wells are there, Andrew, of the well. And explain what we got there.
All right, this picture is terrible. So this is the ground storage tank that the air stack aerator on top of plate aerator where we drop across. Well facility here, and then the remote well. Do you know where it's at?
Yeah, it's on the other side.
On the other side.
Yeah. For the pumpkin. Up. Yeah, where they have the little farmer's garden kind of thing.
Ah, yes. Yeah, there's a remote well facility here, so we actually have 2 wells that pump to this facility. So this is one of the older well sites we have currently in use. I believe it was put in the 40s or 50s.
So maybe
Yeah.
it's small tank.
Mallory Street well. Well, not too far. I'll get there in a minute. Demery. I went too far again. Man. There we go. Right here. Right there on the side of the road.
There it is.
Same setup, much smaller footprint. Ground storage tank, pump building with electrical. We'll be gutting the electrical here too. Also removing an underground storage tank for the fuel. And the last one is the Harrington facility.
Go back to Mallory.
Yes, sir.
It's right in the neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
And that tank has always got mold on it.
We're looking at ways we can, some type of additive to the paint that prevent that from occurring. We have pressure washed it repeatedly, and then within a month, it's right back to where it was at. And then the Harrington facility is immediately adjacent to where Derek Simmons and the water distribution crews work out of. So this is Derek's building here. This is Derek's building here. This is the warehouse. And this is the ground storage tank for the Harrington facility. And this is the pumping building. It's got the high service pumps and the electrical panels. There's got a ceiling repair that needs to be done in there. And so this one's right there off of South Harrington. Again, these were listed as high priority projects in the master plan in the first 5 years of that. So,
You showed us the force main and showed us those.
yes, so the 3103 and 4119 projects are expansion-driven projects. We've got a lot of increased growth in those areas, residential and commercial, and then also at the port at exit 29. These are good projects that we're not just putting in enough capacity for immediate, we're putting in a little extra to allow a buffer, and that will serve us well for many years to come.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Yep.
Well, we can go ahead and vote.
Okay.
2-0.
Yeah.
Motion carries.
Yes.
Next item is Dunbar Creek Water Pollution Control Facility Change Order Number 2. Mr. Burrs?
Yes, sir. As I updated you a couple of months ago, at the Dunbar Creek facility, the 30-inch influent sewer collapsed between the manhole and the influent wet well. We had a small section collapse previously that we change ordered to BRW for $101,702.69. Another section of the line collapsed, so we made the recommendation to go ahead and replace all of that pipe moving in, which has been completed. With the design build process, we get open book pricing where they provide backup receipts for every dollar that is spent, plus we have a guaranteed markup rate for the overhead and markup rate that they put on it. The total cost of replacement of that line was $340,049.48. This is a funded capital project coming out of the bond issuance. And so the request here is to officially approve change order number 2 in the amount of $340,049.48 for the replacement of that influent line. And again, he gave you the cost sheet here of everything that is used. We did not attach it because it ended up being a whole lot of pages, but every one of these charges, there is a supporting invoice available for.
This was an emergency repair.
This is an emergency repair, yes, sir.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve change order number 2 in the amount of $340,049.48 to BRW Construction Group LLC for scope changes associated with the Dunbar Creek Water Pollution Control Facility Rehab Project.
I'll second.
Motion second. Any questions?
Drew, I noticed there's a lot of equipment rentals on here and stuff, just general comment that, you know, I think if we should look at our, maybe go back annually and look at total equipment rental that we do and then see if there's opportunities where we would've been better off just buying equipment, housing it, and having it available even if it's for contractor use, you know, I mean, not that we wanna get in the equipment rental business, but I mean, if we're making something up, but if we're renting pumps consecutively at the cost annually of what we could've bought a pump for.
Sure.
And then ultimately we get the benefit of having that available for our emergencies as well.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is contract awards plus exit 29 water pollution, water production facility and elevated storage tank engineering. Mr. Burrs?
Yes, sir. So, as you are aware, SPLOST 21 collections began April 1st. And so we put out an RFP, get back over here. They put out an RFP February 28th and collected proposals March the 28th. We had 4 proposals received. We had a 3-member panel score the proposals from both engineering and senior leadership. Of the 4 proposals, and I can go through the matrix here shortly, the highest scoring firm was Thomas & Hutton with an average score proposal of 78.3. One thing we've done differently here compared to our traditional engineering contract was, instead of asking for a hard dollar budget for construction phase services for inspection and construction administration, we asked for a percentage of construction cost budget. So that is not being awarded at this time. The request is to award the design budget, and then once the project is bid out, we will come back to you with a proposal from them not to exceed the amount budgeted here in the proposals received for that construction phase services. So the SPLOST 2021 budget for this project, which is to convert a well site into a production facility and install a 500,000 gallon elevated storage facility at exit 29, is originally budgeted at $6 million. The engineering design is $230,480. You see the scoring sheet here, which we'll go over shortly. But let me explain the real reason we need to do this project. Let's see, water main. Clear the scale range. One thing you will notice, getting a little crowded. One thing you will notice on this system, we currently have 3 wells on the permit. 2 of them are in use currently. With the old Brookman well up here at the very far end of our system, there's an elevated storage tank. The other well that we currently use is the Fancy Bluff well, which is out here across from Royal Oaks, I guess is the best way of describing that, that we just talked about with pump station 3103. So you see that the well sites that we have currently in use are at either end of the system. The exit 29 well that would be converted is currently, the well has been examined. It will function. We just need to add treatment capacity, ground storage tank, and chemicals there. Is right here on a property adjacent to the existing exit 29 wastewater treatment facility. We have intermittent pressure issues in neighborhoods down here around Clearwater and also along Buck Swamp Road for some of these neighborhoods, because all the water is being pushed from either end of the T up here, and this end is kind of left in the middle. So the hope here is to construct an elevated storage tank adjacent to the well site, and a well site which will help stabilize pressures in this general region. Another thing to keep in mind, the Development Authority now owns the old Dean's Island tract, which is a 1,200 acre industrial site that they are marketing for industrial use. The old Brookman facility, which is the only current elevated storage tank at exit 29, is stubbed out to the property line at Dean's Island. So if something were to come in there, which we are hopefully getting interest in with the Hyundai suppliers and types that are coming into our region, that would put a tremendous strain on the old Brookman tank to maintain pressures throughout the rest of the system. So this is a good planning project for us, and then we'll have an elevated storage tank here adjacent to the wastewater plant that's kind of bookending our county. When you come into Glynn County, we'll have a water tank on one end. We have the other project to put a water tank at exit 42. It'd be a good signpost for us to say that we're open for business in Glynn County. Let's see here. Scoring, we did a little differently this time. We asked for a little more detailed information to try to make sure we were getting to the right conclusion. So we asked for 2 similar projects, and including the conceptual layouts for the projects that were completed. We asked for projects that had been designed and constructed and were in use. We also had references provided outside of that we called references and actually interviewed the people that had worked with the engineers before. We scored them based off of 6 what we considered key team members for the project, and each individual team member got a score. We asked for detailed information on their approach to managing the budget and also cost estimation, which we know right now is somewhat a shot in the dark, but we wanted to know what their experiences were with that and how they proposed to handle escalating cost. How they ensured the quality assurance and quality control of their projects so that we don't have errors that end up occurring and having to be corrected in the field. Project timelines is a major concern. We know that a lot of our projects are behind schedule right now. We want to make sure this project, being a SPLOST project, stays on time. And then permitting. We know we're going to have EPD permitting, but since it's an elevated tank, we'll have to run this by the FAA. It will be adjacent to I-95, so there's likely to be some involvement from GDOT, and then of course local building permitting as well. On the cost proposal, we're awarding the design proposal today. That's a lump sum pricing for design for 15% of the score, and then that percentage budget for task 4. We'll say the recommended firm of Thompson Hutton, their percentage budget for construction phase services was 3%. And then we also gave points for local preference for where the project management will be located out of, whether you were within Glynn County or different milestones outside. And then we gave a score for past performance on our projects of 1 to 5 based off of experience with us. If you had not worked with us before, you received a score of 3 for that. So the highest scoring proposal was Thompson Hutton. Thompson Hutton is doing the design on the Canal Road facility that is currently under design. It's a very similar project. The only difference with this project is the design of the elevated storage tank. They did have recent project experience designing elevated storage tanks. They've got the project experience with the Canal Road well. And we expect this to be a quicker project than some of the other ones because a lot of the similar design principles can be used.
It looks like they were the cheapest too.
They were, yes, sir.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend that the full commission award a contract in the amount of $230,480 to Thomas & Hutton for engineering services for the SPLOST Exit 29 water production facility and elevated storage tank project.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions. I think one of the things that, we sit here and we deal with a lot of technical things, but if you were an outside person, just a customer, a project like this, the SPLOST project, allows us to push this ahead of where it would normally be in our rotation. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. For us to fund a $6 million project, you're not going to fund many of those in a budget. So
Right.
This is a good project for the community to increase water availability in the Exit 29 area and also stabilize pressures, which is a big deal for folks.
And I think that's important because, most people, end users, turn on the tap and they don't think about any of the process that goes on.
Right.
So it's very important, I think, that people realize that the thought that's gone into this and the planning that's gone into this. And also, I know from experience or the recent fire that we had locally here, we were able to supply a significant amount of water, whatever was needed by the fire department, even though no one ever mentioned that. The first responders were using our water, which is kind of a key to the whole thing. And I think it's important that when we're doing planning with an elevated storage tank and more availability of water in that area, if another fire occurs somewhere else, that we have planned properly for the usage and for peak usage.
And I will say, mention this is SPLOST 2021 funded. Collections began April 1st. We will not receive the first check for SPLOST until the end of May. However,
But they're good for it, aren't they?
they are good. A, they are good for it, and B, if this is awarded today, we will likely not get an invoice prior to the end of May.
Okay.
So, but we fully intend to be on schedule with these SPLOST projects because that was a lot of the concerns that the public had was the projects getting behind schedule.
We could spot on the money in the interim, I think.
So in the next couple of months, you'll see a RFP release for the other SPLOST project, which is to extend water and sewer systems to unserved areas. So we're going to jump on both of those as quickly as we can.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
You said that they were substantially lower than the other ones.
Yes, sir.
The Canal Road project they're working on now, they're way behind schedule on that.
Yes, sir.
Why is that so far behind on schedule? Have you asked them that?
Well, we've had some back and forth with them narrowing down the design choices, and currently they are going through EPD review and responding to questions from the EPD. We also had some issues with wetland permitting there because of the site being tight and also having to do a lease agreement with the airport for the additional property. None of that should be an issue on this project.
Can you pull up the Southport wastewater plant and show us where the well is
Sure.
on Google Earth so we can
I got it right
talk about something? Y'all
This-
know where the Southport plant is?
This is Southport plant adjacent to I-95.
Barely see it from the interstate.
Yeah.
Show us where the well is,
The
Andy.
well is right here.
And where is the elevated tank gonna go?
We have two options for the elevated tank. We can either locate the elevated tank here on the wastewater right beside the wastewater plant and the elevated storage tank. Or there may be an avenue to locate it over here in this area. There are some wetlands in this area, but we think we can probably get it in over there. But we've got two options, similar benefits to both locations. So we own this property here all the way back out to Southport Parkway. We're looking at rewriting a force main through here already, so it may get a little crowded. So we're going to try to make it work over here, but if not, we'll have plenty of space to put it in over here.
But visible from the interstate.
Either way, it's going to be adjacent to the interstate.
Right.
And that well, will it require a well house too, or just a very small well house?
It'll be very similar to what we put in Ridgewood. The building for what we put in at Ridgewood would be very similar to what we're going to get here.
It has to be that even though we have a big control building at the wastewater plant?
I think we want to separate all the,
The water people don't like working with the
no,
sewage.
exactly. I will say as a compliment, 100% compliment to the wastewater plant here. This is an elementary school, Satilla Marsh Elementary. I was there a couple weeks ago chatting with somebody about a STEM opportunity, and they were talking about STEM for children and stuff. I said, we could even get you a tour of the wastewater plant. Well, this is the entrance. There's, you know, U-shaped entrance to the facility here for the school. This is the entrance to the wastewater plant. Nobody I talked to actually knew there was a wastewater plant back there. And that's the highest compliment you can give a wastewater plant is I didn't know it was there. So
Absolutely.
well done by the wastewater facility there, making sure nobody knows that they're back there. So
Now, is that gonna require a line going underneath the highway,
no, sir.
interstate eventually for?
We could eventually do that. We weren't planning on that. Also, we were going to loop in these neighborhoods here because they're single fed. So we were going to try to loop in some of these neighborhoods to the tank and stuff here as well.
But if on that pump station that we're talking about on
We could
the
put two casings in,
yeah, we could just do it.
Yeah.
At one time.
get it together at one time and be ready to go. Yes, sir. It's a really good idea.
Did they say how long it's gonna take them to do the work?
We, trying to be cognizant of everybody's workload, allowed a time of up to 330 days for design for a bid-ready package. Thompson Hutton assures us they will be done much sooner than that because they can use similar designs of what they've already got working.
Okay. Any other questions?
I will say, once this goes to construction, you're probably looking at 18 months to get this project constructed because of the elevated storage tank.
Any other questions? All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is contract award for Highway 341 Crispin Boulevard repairs. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. Let me orient us here on Highway 341 in Crispin. If you've driven the Highway 341 Crispin area, you have undoubtedly seen road plates up there. There has been a partial collapse of a sewer main. The line is still flowing. That is right here at this intersection. It may say, the picture may be on Google Earth. The Google car was in town. So this section here between this manhole and this manhole, there's a partial collapse of this line that is flowing. To make matters substantially more complicated, this is in the travel lane of Highway 341. And there are two 36-inch RCP storm sewer lines that are across the top of this pipe. Let's make it even more complicated, and there are two force mains that come into this manhole. This is one of the most challenging sections of pipe we have to deal with in our system. We have contacted multiple construction firms asking for pricing, and we have finally received 2 proposals. 5 people declined to give us a proposal, indicated that that was not something they were interested in taking on right now. It is a 60-foot section of 18-inch ductile iron piping. And like I said, it has force main discharge, extensive traffic control. The 2 proposals that are submitted are essentially the same proposal because the work will have to be done, doesn't have to be done, but the work we're going to get done trenchlessly to avoid having to support those 36-inch RCP lines. But to do that, you do have to dig down and get entry pits and also do bypassing, traffic control and everything. So there's a CIPP contractor and there's a standard civil contractor. We got proposals from both of them, so the decision here when we were looking at this is simply who's going to be the prime contractor. We decided to move forward with Popco Inc. as the prime contractor at $679,000. The proposal from Bionomics included an additional management fee for them to manage the project, so we're avoiding that cost. This is a substantially higher price than what we would typically pay to repair a 60-foot section of pipe, but there has been extreme lack of interest in the project, and we need to get this work completed and the roadway restored to required conditions. So we recommend moving forward with Popco. I'm also recommending that we fund this out of the Series 2021 bond issuance because CIPP rehab is a allowable use of that bond funding. That we do not have $679,000 in the operating budget that's just sitting around this time of year.
Do we have some lane closures right now?
Not right now, it's plated. There are no lane closures. There will have to be, this section of Crispin will have to be closed off while they're doing the work, and likely a single lane closure on 341.
So we're replacing a manhole,
No, sir. We are,
but manhole has two force mains coming into it?
what we're going to do is, hang on, let me get down to the top, where's the top window? We will be rehabbing that manhole once we get it together. We're likely going to have to remove a couple of the upper sections of the manholes to make sure we can get in there and do the work properly. Well pointing the area, bypassing is going to be an extreme challenge. And then traffic control is also much more expensive than would typically be required. We have talked to GDOT, and we are going to be required to pay 50 foot in every direction of the section. So the paving cost is also much higher than what you would typically see for a standard sewer repair of 60 feet.
They know what we're gonna be doing and they've given us the permit?
They haven't given us the permit, but they're aware of the situation, yes, sir. And they are very much pushing us to get this corrected.
So it's an emergency.
Yes, sir.
Sounds like
It's only gonna take 35 to 45 days for completion, right?
Once 30 to 45 days for completion, they ask for at least 2 weeks to mobilize. So looking closer to 60 days probably for final completion.
The bypassing, is that what, rented equipment, or is that?
That's what, well, I don't know if they're renting it or bringing it. It's there with their equipment. Whether they're renting it or not, I'm not sure.
Again, I just, point out, I mean, if we've got that kind of stuff that we own, and, $115,000, I realize there's probably labor in there too.
There's a lot of
But
labor.
if half of that, just making up a number, is equipment, that's a big down payment on us owning the equipment.
Yes, sir.
And the perception, my perception at least, is that we have a lot of those things we're renting, and we need to, there's no doubt, and I realize we can't, build a house for Easter Sunday, but at least if we had a core group of equipment that we owned and could provide the contractors to do our own bypassing, it would help us have that equipment for when we needed it.
Yes, sir.
Help pay for the equipment when we needed it versus going to a rental company.
Absolutely.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve a contract award in the amount of $679,000 to Popco Inc. for necessary repairs at Highway 341 and Crispin Boulevard intersection.
Second.
Motion second. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is contract award Academy Creek influent check valve replacements. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. Academy Creek, we've been doing a lot of work, and one of the things we've noticed is we're having some check valve issues at that facility. And we have purchased 4 new 16-inch check valves, that are at the plant. This is a bit more of a project than we are able to take on internally. So we went out for quotes to get people to replace the check valves for us. We got 2 quotes, one from BRW Construction, who is doing the project at Dunbar. They submitted a quote of $31,423 to replace all 4 check valves. Macklejohn here locally submitted a quote of $23,950 for 2 check valve replacements. So doubling that would be $47,900. And we contacted a third firm that did not have the resources available to work on our project for us. We recommend replacing all 4 check valves as part of one contract to avoid having to pay multiple mobilization charges. What they will do at each influent pump has a check valve and a plug valve. What they are going to do is cut out both the existing check and plug, remove all of that, assemble everything above ground, and then lower it into the hole as one piece, because the new check valves may not have the exact same lay length as the old check valves. So the check valves are available. We've already purchased those. So this is to award a contract to BRW to complete the influent check valve replacements, which is probably, I'm guessing, about a week's worth of work once they get there. $31,423 will be funded out of the Academy Creek operations budget.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve a contract award in the amount of $31,423 to BRW Construction Group LLC for influent check valve replacements at Academy Creek.
Second.
I will say here, sir, we are not bypassing, so we are not paying for bypass rental here.
All that.
Yes.
No
There's a
bypass.
motion second, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is item 8, storm contingency standby generator rental, Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. I actually hoped we would not be bringing this to you this year. We do this every single year. We have ordered through FEMA's grant program that we were awarded 5 portable generators. We expected those. The original shipment date was July, so I thought we were probably going to be okay. Well, we got notified literally last week when I was trying to finalize the budget that November will be when those are currently showing up. So that's a little bit past, well, that's at the end of hurricane season. But we got through the bulk of hurricane season without getting them here. So we are requesting to redo our 5 rental generator project. The money went up a little bit this year. Last year's was around $120,000, but renting 5 generators from Yancey Power Systems that we keep on site. It comes with all the connections, and they come down and do maintenance on them periodically to make sure they're still running and functional when we need them. Was $138,605.50. This is funded out of the hurricane preparedness line item budget for systems pumping and maintenance, because these generators are used for backup power at existing lift stations that do not have permanent install. Following along the conversation we had about purchasing equipment, once we get reimbursements back from FEMA, assuming we get the full reimbursement, once we buy 5 generators, we'll be buying 5 generators for the cost of 1 generator. So hopefully, assuming the generators show up, which if you're in the industry, you know that generators are probably the longest lead time item out there right now. This will be the last year we have to rent these 5 generators. And I have a preview for the Finance Committee. I have reworked the budget to include the money for this. Obviously, we did not, when we presented this in March, we did not have $140,000 in the budget for renting generators, but it has been reworked.
Can I have a motion?
Go ahead.
I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve the rental agreement with Yancey Power Systems, CAT, in the amount of $138,605.50.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second. Any questions, comments?
So these are in play, I mean, these aren't sitting on our yard somewhere, they're in place?
No, they'll be sitting, we're renting them from Yancey. They will sit at our facility and we will haul them, they're on trailers, we'll haul them to the sites as needed. But in a storm event, what we have found in the past is not having them on site. Everybody's looking for generators and nobody's got them at that point. So we go ahead and get them locked down, so if we need them, we're not behind the.
Where are they coming from?
Savannah. Well, rephrase. The Yancey facility is in Savannah. Whether or not that's where the generators are sitting at right now, I'm not sure.
I mean, to your point, if we're gonna have to trailer them from our yard to the inside, I was just wondering if it wouldn't be more efficient for us to save the $7,000 and go get them.
We could certainly do that.
I mean, if they're, especially if some of them are in Brunswick, I don't know if they are.
They're at least in Savannah, but we could certainly look at doing that, of going and picking them up.
And then second comment was, understanding the rental of the generators, but the cabling and stuff like that, would we not be better off just buying it versus having
We've ordered it. We're waiting on it.
cable?
Yes.
For the new generators.
For the new generators
Yeah, for the new ones,
with
I
the
mean-
cam locks and everything, we're waiting on it.
I'm surprised that World Electric here in Brunswick can't get 4-aught cable. I mean, 50 feet of 4-aught cable.
Well, we ordered the pigtails with the cam locks and everything on it, and that's what we're waiting on.
So revising the question, then I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if we should look at the cabling.
We can look at that, yes, sir.
You know, $23,000 in cable rental for a 6-month period, would be better off buying the cable. And, you know, cause, I mean, they're in the business of renting that cable for a short amount of times. I mean, that, you know, you get my point.
I understand completely, yes, sir.
I wonder that would be worth looking at, and then the generator's not much we can do about, but, you know, we could cut that from 140 down to 107.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Raise your right hand. Motion carries 3-0. Next item is USGS Joint Funding Agreement. Mr. Burrs?
Yes, sir. Since 2014, we have been entered into agreements with the U.S. Geological Survey to monitor the migration of chlorides throughout the upper Florida aquifer. This is for long-term planning for drinking water wells as growth continues in Glynn County. And the plume is located very near the Brunswick-Villa well and the wells near the hospital. This has caused us a saltwater intrusion in the past, caused us to close the Perry Park well and grout it up as a drinking water source. The cost for maintenance and operation of the groundwater wells has increased in recent years, as well as the labor costs USGS has involved with this. There's a joint funding agreement. We do pay a larger share than they do, but we were able to negotiate the original proposal down for us to pay $80,000 this year instead of the proposed over $90,000. To do this, this is a budgeted line item in the Office of the Director's Technical Services budget, and we are recommending moving forward. There is a copy of the proposal here. You can see that USGS's share is $64,000, ours is $80,000, and they give you some of the background here. It's a very technical document that Dr. Cherry provides for us, but this is the location of the plume. The warmer the color, the hotter the concentration of chlorides are. So this is Brunswick Cellulose. They are the largest water user in Glynn County, so it makes sense that the plume would be shifting more towards them than anyone else. They have substantially reduced their water usage since the 60s and 70s, but they still pull a considerable amount of water. And so they've monitored this. I can get Dr. Cherry here to do a full presentation on this if anybody would like him to do that. He'll be happy to do that. But you can see the monitoring wells and how the plume has developed. The one thing I will note is in June 2000, you see the bright red and the orange here, and then it is seemingly stabilizing or maybe slightly improving in recent years. So continuing to monitor this is a good practice for us as stewards of the groundwater here. They have reached out to other large water users in our area to attempt to get offsets for our contribution that have not been successful in recent years, but they're going to try again.
What's the acceptable level?
I think it's 500, but don't quote me on that. I can get you the full report. It's 80 or 90 pages. I don't remember exactly what it
I
is.
was curious what the acceptable level of
Yeah, the ones now that we're paying the most attention to, Brunswick-Villa is right here, which is, of course, the most closely one, and then the hospital's got a well here that they monitor, and then the Goodyear Park well is near the hospital, and those are the 3 wells that we're paying the most attention to. The Coffin Park well is relatively close, but we haven't seen much of any kind of increase there, so.
ours is not domestic.
Right, yeah, sure, but they just take groundwater samples from multiple
Right,
wells.
sure. What, so is the blue acceptable for drinking water?
Yes.
Or is it, okay, so it can be, so that's the
We're
light-
trying to avoid the yellows, the oranges, and the reds.
I'd just be curious to know what the acceptable threshold is for drinking water.
I can get you that information, but I'm sorry, I just do not
that's fine.
recall.
Do we have anything in the green that we use right now?
There are no wells currently in use by the Joint Water and Sewer Commission that are inside the plume area.
Okay.
Because the only well that was inside the plume area is the Perry Park well, and it has been grouted shut.
Has the flume changed over the last,
You can kind of see here on this page, if you kind of look at this, the shape hasn't changed a whole lot, but you see some random spikes in different areas.
okay,
2015 is when we shut down the Perry Park well. because this red spike showed up here. And so, you know, and also, you know, as we've grown as a community, it's grown away from the plume, so the new wells are helping that as well. And also, like I said, Brunswick Cellulose has, in the past 30 to 40 years, has cut their withdrawal in half.
So how are they, if there's no wells in that area, how are they taking samples in that area?
They have a lot there. We don't have any wells, but they're taking groundwater well samples from like 53 wells. So there's actually a small groundwater sampling facility at Pump Station 4003 on K Street. We do not run a well there, but they have samples of groundwater all across the plume area.
I got you. And those are shallow water wells, I assume?
No, they go all the way to the upper Florida,
Who put them in?
USGS.
Oh, they put them in specifically for it, okay.
And when will we get the report?
The reports, well, the report is one thing. The data is real time. You can go on the U.S. Geological Survey website and get real time data, and they present the findings once a year to us. Typically, they present that to staff, and we don't bring that in here because it is a highly technical discussion. But if you would like them to come and do that, we'll be happy to bring them in. If you think I get excited about wastewater plants, Dr. Cherry is very excited about groundwater monitoring.
Do you need a motion, Phil, or we already have?
Still need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the facility committee recommends full permission to enter in a joint funding agreement with USGS, the amount of $80,000 for the continuation of groundwater monitoring in the Upper Florida Act.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0.
Okay.
Dedication of private infrastructure and easement. Mr. Klein?
This is easier. You gotta help her.
Assume control here. All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an easement infrastructure dedication item here for Point Grand, Brunswick. It's an apartment complex up off of Chapel Crossing, north of the mall area. And as part of the dedication, it's not a lot of infrastructure. It's just enough for them to tie into our system. About 340 linear feet of water, valued at $25,000. 15 linear feet of sewer, valued at around $4,800. Utility easement, and there was 2 parcels that it crossed. That's why there's 2 utility easements associated with this. And for zoom in real quick here on GIS to show you the location. You're just going to see the apartments penciled in at this point.
So this is a new water line.
Yes, sir.
This is a new development, all private internal. That's why, thus the small portions of dedicated water and sewer lines associated with this. It's actually, there's 2 meters that are going to loop the system into ours. There's a meter up top, then a smaller meter down here at the southern end as well.
The crossing on Chapel Road, that's Chapel Crossing, that's also included, right? The water line crossing that?
Correct.
Was that board encased or just board?
Is it, I'm sorry,
Was the
Is it
line-
is that the crossing cased, or is it just board across?
it's just board across. Yeah, it's Glynn County, that's a county road. Glynn County typically does not require us to case them. I believe it's just board straight across.
And what kind of pipe is that on that?
PVC, I'm assuming, right?
Mhm.
And we inspected this while it was being put in, didn't
Yes, sir.
Correct. It's private development, but as with all private development, it must still meet our standards, and it was inspected along the way.
Are they gonna need additional water lines when they build the other part of the project there?
So, Commissioner, good questions. Next door is Town Square, which is under construction now.
Right,
There's a few different phases of that.
right.
There will be they'll be coming to us with additional pieces to connect and dedicate as well at that point.
Right.
dedicated easement.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
We'll move to the discussion section of the meeting. Water production report, Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. Our water production report looks very similar to where it has for the last couple of months. Average monthly usage on the mainland for Brunswick, 5.1 million gallons. Do see a slight increase in flow, obviously, with the spring break crowd beginning to get here in March, and also some outdoor water usage increases. Goodyear Park increased a little bit for the month, but a little bit of a reduction in Brunswick Villa explains that. You'll also notice we did get some more usage out of the Fletsey well. We actually believe we found what the problem at that well facility is. That well facility has 2 suction lines coming out of the ground storage tank, which is very uncommon. And once we shut off one side to determine which side may have an issue, it started pumping again. So we assume it was pulling air out of that one side. So working through that right now, but trying to get that well to start picking up a little more flow for us. The Canal Road well we talked about is currently not in use. It's being converted to a production facility. And if one taste and odor complaint for the month, it was about some discolored water that actually occurred after we had flushed the area. When they actually turned their faucet on that next morning, they had a little bit of debris in the line. Flows are slightly higher than they were this time last year. We are seeing growth, as Mr. Klein just talked about, a new apartment complex coming online. Are seeing a little bit of growth on the mainland right now, so water usage going up slightly, but well below our available capacity for the month.
I have a question. Before you had Ridgewood in operation, where was the water coming from?
Golden
Which
Isles 2.
Okay, that's where it was all,
Golden Isles 2 did the bulk of the work that Ridgewood is doing now.
okay.
So
And now it's sharing.
now it's sharing considerably better.
Okay.
How far back do we have this data?
Years.
Would it be possible maybe to add like a block up here, that just, by year, not by month by year, but just by year, just kind of say, hey, this
Sure.
is what
Absolutely.
what we did in the past. I'm just curious what the growth over time is.
Sure.
And it won't change once you input it one time.
Right,
It's
absolutely.
not like you have to do it every month.
That's real straightforward to put on there.
In the same chart, you could put the number of customers too.
Yeah, if you got it.
Within reason, yes, sir. St. Simons Island, 2.7 million gallons a day usage on St. Simons. Pretty well balanced on the ones on the south end. Airport well, we're running off the remote well right now, the main well. We talked about having a remote well at that facility. The main well is down for inspection. So Mallory picked up some of the slack there with that main well being down. The remote well doesn't have the full capacity of the main well. But again, if you look at our usage on St. Simons compared to last year, just slightly higher than where we have been in recent years. The January usage number you'll see is much higher than what it was, but remember the extreme cold snap we got at the end of the year. So I suspect that January usage number was heavily influenced by water going on the ground. Or simply people running faucets overnight.
What are the complaints for?
One of them was for manganese buildup in the faucets. We got them to clean their strainers out. And the other one is a recurring concern that we have that we are unable to satisfy their concerns. There are no issues, just the explanation is not to their liking. And at the South Mainland, this system balances very well. 300,000 gallons a day, almost exactly half from Fancy Bluff, half from Brookman. We just awarded, or not, just recommended award tomorrow at the Exit 29 conversion as well. So that facility, almost exactly where we have been last year for the Exit 29 facility.
And the Exit 29, that's where we have awarded the contract for the engineering.
Yes,
to
sir.
Make that into production well.
That'll
Whereas
put that
right
in
now it's a
production,
fire
yes, sir.
well.
We do have some projects down there from a private development standpoint that are underway right now. So we should likely see in the coming months an increase in water usage on the South Mainland as well. A couple of multifamily developments that are going through the design stages right now.
But we have plenty of capacity.
We have plenty
for
of
that.
capacity. Yes, sir. Hey, yes, sir. We don't approve anything for private development unless we have sufficient capacity for
Capacity,
you,
yeah.
for it.
I know McIntosh is looking at, I say McIntosh, I think it's City of Darien, I can't remember, but they're looking at doing adding some wells and capacity and all that. I just wondered it, and this might be a silly question, but do we have anything close enough to that it would be mutually beneficial for them to tie on our system and pay us for water versus adding infrastructure?
Closest well we have to McIntosh County is the Golden Isles 1 well, which is off of Shell Road.
At some point, there's a balance
We
between the pipe
had to take a
cost.
look at it. The pipe cost is gonna be pretty significant to get water from there.
Sure.
To be something we'd certainly be interested in. There's some permitting things to get it across county lines. Also, governmental agreements would have to be in place, but
Probably not worth exploring, but, if it's close and it's, if pipe's cheaper than a well and a tower.
if it was at the end of 99 and Highway 17, yes, but you're a couple miles from there just to get to that intersection.
Oh, really? Okay.
You're talking
Yeah.
about a significant amount of pipe to get it to
The
it.
county line's on the river, isn't it?
Yes.
We got to cross the river too.
Well, either get GDOT to allow us to put a pipe on their new bridge they're putting in, or we'll have to bore the river.
Yeah, like I said, probably not worth it, but at least worth discussing or
Right,
figuring it out. I mean, at least worth bringing up, but I mean, before they put, I don't know what they're planning on putting well-wise in there. I mean, how many millions of dollars it
I can certainly reach
costs
out,
to put a well in there,
see if that's something they're interested in, yes, sir.
tank, et cetera. And if we, again, I doubt it's probably a no-go, but at least worth 30 seconds of conversation. But, we've got customers up 99 and 17 that we don't have, that we're not serving. Running a line to McIntosh would also give us the ability to serve them in the future.
Absolutely, and that area is, the Hoffel Plantation up there takes up a huge portion of the available property in that area.
Yeah.
So it's not high density. So we've looked at that. It's something we're interested in doing, but we've got other higher density targets first.
I don't understand that.
All right, wastewater flow reports. I notified all of you at the end of the month, we had a random pop-up storm one Saturday that caused more damage than we expected at Academy Creek. One thing it did was rip the roof off of a building and caused the rain to get in on the motor control centers, which is, the motor control centers don't like getting wet. So we had to, we lost power, had to get creative with the solutions there. So at Academy Creek, the numbers got a little high. They're still within permit, but got a little high for the end of the month, which kind of skewed everything upward a little bit. We have got everything back running close to normal now. But the BOD and TSS coming into the plant were a little higher. We had a fairly dry couple of months, so the concentrations were a little higher. We had just shy of 6 million gallons, 5.9 million gallons going out. Remember, I talked about those influent numbers the last couple months. We've got check valve problems. We just talked about replacing those check valves. I think we've got water recirculating through those check valves and being pumped multiple times on the influent. The effluent concentrations, again, a little higher in most situations of what we've had in recent months, but they're dropping back in the right direction now. 97% removal of BOD for the month, 98% removal of TSS. And then water usage in line with where we have been, slightly less sludge to the landfill. Miss Sarah is back running appropriately now, so we're going to keep being nice to her, make sure she stays up and running.
I was gonna ask why that is so variable, because it looks like it's about a 3-month cycle there where
Yes, if the dryer is not running, you will see that number elevate. Because the difference is water that you're hauling,
yeah.
essentially, so.
And we pay by the ton of the
We
load.
buy a ton. So it's very critical for us to keep her running.
When will we start hauling from the other two plants to Academy?
We've got a couple of things that gotta be adjusted to do that. When we do the changes that we spoke about for the hydraulics, they've gotta pour another slab at the sludge offloading facility for us to do that.
So Andrew, this might be a stupid question too, you know me, I'm just always trying to think outside the box a little bit, but, so the tonnage, theoretically, the volume is different, much different.
It's considerably different.
The volume is,
Yes,
between wet and dry?
yes.
Wow. How so? I mean, explain that to me.
You're talking about, the particles coming off of a dryer look more like, halfway between a sand and a topsoil versus something that looks more like brownies.
Okay,
Real wet brownies.
Yeah.
so
real
the wet takes up much more room?
Much more room.
Okay,
So you have to take more loads. You have to make more trips.
So you're not only paying.
Not only paying more for the tonnage, you're paying more in diesel, you're paying more in staff time, there's a lot more, involved with running wet. And we say wet, it's not wet, we're not hauling liquids.
Right,
It's
sure, yeah.
water that's bound up in the
Well,
solids.
it's like 16% solids to what, 2%?
Versus 98% solids.
So, okay, so that might make what I was gonna ask a moot point, and it sounds like it does, but, you know, otherwise, if you're, I don't see why the landfill would care what the weight of the material is, only what the volume of the material is.
They have two reasons to care. One, they care, the volume obviously, cause they have to fill it in, but
Yeah,
also
volume.
they have regulation from the state of how much wet material they can take.
Okay.
They can actually use our dry material for daily cover.
Oh, okay,
So they really like us bringing them
I
the
got
dry material because then they got extra dirt to use as cover.
okay, well, that certainly makes what I was gonna ask a moot point, so.
So, try to be good partners for our friends in
Yeah,
Canyon
100%
County.
agree, I was just wondering if it's, you know, if all they really care about is the volume, you know, it would be cheaper for us to pay a higher cost than the dry, but it sounds like that's not the case.
We've ran the numbers, I run them about every year, just to confirm, we're still coming out way ahead by drying. Even with natural gas having
Should they
increased
give us a
like this.
lower rate for the dried
It's
sludge?
still a lower rate for the drying sludge, yes, sir.
Interesting.
Dunbar Creek, you'll notice the influent meter says not available because the meter went out. It got replaced last week. So that number was absolute garbage for the month, so I just didn't even include it. The effluent flow number there, 2.9 million gallons for the month. You'll see March typically we start creeping up a little bit because we got more people in town on St. Simon's. If you recall, last month that influent line collapsed, so the BOD and TSS numbers coming into the plant were substantially higher than they actually should have been because the plant was backed up while we were making those repairs. But the numbers got back down to normal this month, very standard month at the facility. You go out there now, the only thing you can tell about the influent line is that we don't have any grass growing because it's just dirt, so they've done a real good job there. But 98% removal of BOD and TSS at that facility, being operated very effectively. Anytime you're operating a plant during a major construction project, it comes with challenges, but so far staff is responding very well to the ongoing construction project. Considerably lower flow this March compared to last March, but if you look at the graph, that yellow bar on the graph for last year, the rainfall much higher in March of '22 than March of '23, so that more than explains the difference in the flows. And then exit 29, about 500,000 gallons a day going through the facility, 35% of the capacity taken up. Again, it's kind of a broken record, but a very standard month for our facilities. Everything's being operated effectively, well within permit ranges. 98% BOD and 99% TSS removal for the month at exit 29. So kudos to our wastewater operations staff for operating the plants within their permit limits effectively. I actually think we might have a little bit of a solids deposition issue on the meters flumes, so I think that may explain the increase in flow at exit 29, because we do not have any additional customer base that would explain that increase in flow.
Is there a way to put a key on here just for what's a max permit, what's a minimum permit?
It's on there.
Where am I missing that?
Bottom line, it says permit limits in dark at the bottom.
The permit limit's 5?
Yeah, 5 is that one's a minimum. Got to be at least 5.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, so you want to put where there's, okay, I got you. Yes,
Is it, you know, we gotta meet at least 5 or we can't go over?
I got you. I can certainly fix that. Yes, sir.
Cause it looked like, you know.
That
we're
one
over.
looks like an error every time. Yes, sir.
Right, yeah.
That's the only one that,
That's the only one that's minimum?
as far as I know, that's the only one that, well, pH is a minimum, but it's a range of 6 to
Right, I see
9.
the range there, and that, which makes sense.
But the rest of them are all maximums.
Maybe just put a greater than.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yes, sir.
I don't wanna ask a question every month,
That's quite all right.
or every third when I forget.
All right, ready? All right, Commissioners, good afternoon again. Go through the capital project report, picture report. Go through quickly. Pump station 2002 force main replacement, self-performed work, systems pumping and maintenance crews, construction crews are doing this work. And my understanding is they're getting the dewatering installed.
It's installed and turned on yesterday. They're digging today, or they're supposed to be digging today. I've not checked in.
Okay.
They've got to excavate the fill material. Went back and did compaction testing, and did not pass a compaction testing standard set by Glynn County. So they've asked us to excavate the unsuitable soils and replace with dredge sand from Andrews Island and recompact. So they're in the process of doing that now.
Okay. So paving will be in the near future on that. Okay, next project, Arco area water and sewer extensions. And the good news on this project is they are testing this week, final inspections and testing on the first segment of gravity sewer that's gonna allow new customers to connect. So, good news on that. We're looking for good results. No issues expected to be found with that. Typical
They had a
testing.
well point much of that sewer line,
Pretty much all of it so far.
Yes, sir.
just single well point, so.
They're using a, rather than typical 2-inch well points, they're using, I always call them whistles, but 8-inch pipe will slot, drop down in, and pull from there with their dewatering pumps. But actually submersible dewatering pumps, which is kind of interesting. But seems to be effective, but it's a lot of water that they're moving out of that work site. All right. Galvanized replacements, internal self-performed project again as well. And we've got Mr. Justin Lewis, water distribution up top, showcasing some of the finds that he made. Galvanized system, they're pretty typical of what you find for tuberculated steel pipes or galvanized steel, and what's left of them after they've been in the ground for a number of years. Another section of galvanized tied into some PVC with a surface saddle there, and then a spigot assembly, again galvanized pipe. Mr. Bob Ward's holding. They keep those scrap bins pretty full.
We've got one more street to do in St. Clair, and then we'll be done with St. Clair. Everything else has been tied in. They are also working in the El Dorado neighborhood, Riviera, Menendez, and I forget that third street that's in there, drive. Over at El Dorado is being replaced, and they're today working off of Old Cypress Mill on some of the neighborhoods off of Old Cypress Mill, installing lines.
What percent you think we're finished on that?
We've got, we've done 3.5 to 4 miles of galvanized lines so far. I think when we originally started this, we were looking at about 35 miles of pipes. We're probably 10% done with replacing
Okay.
all the galvanized.
So still got a lot of work to
Still
do.
got a lot of work to do, yes, sir.
Okay. Another good project here, meter replacements, and that's still ongoing. M&E Construction is a contractor. It's a good example of some old meter box infrastructure coming out of the ground there.
Got a little over 20,000 meters so far, and we've been working on large meters for the last month or so. Their crews have been in and out of town for the last month, but so didn't get a lot of production last month, but we have a commitment that it will be back to full staff for our job Monday. So the rate of install should go up starting Monday. We have found a few meters that few connections that were unmetered as part of this. That's when you replace 30,000 meters, you find a couple of things like that out of the system.
Yeah.
Dunbar Creek.
All right, Dunbar Creek, you see the UV system actually came in 1 month early, which is the first thing that's came in early in 3 years. That has been delivered. We've also had the filters delivered, and the diffusers showed up last week. And the odor control showed up Monday. So we now have all the large pieces of equipment we're waiting on. We went from a hurry up and wait scenario where we didn't have materials to now we got all the material, not all of the materials, but all the large materials on hand, and looking to make rapid progress there. As you see the UV system, it comes in boxes, and you essentially have a big erector set you've got to put together to make it work. The post aeration basin you see at the picture there, those walls on the right side there that have now been demoed, and they are looking to pour the new walls for the UV and the filter setup. And then they had to pour a new slab for the odor control facility that you see Mr. Whitlow taking a look at there on the bottom left. That pad has now been poured. Looks very nice. So contractor working very effectively out there. Had an on-site meeting with the SCADA contractor yesterday, working through some of that. SCADA is always a essential part of these projects, and hopefully looking at finishing this up. Contractor seems to indicate maybe by August, definitely by the third, fourth quarter of this year will be wrapped up.
Even when we had the clarifier?
No, sir. If we had the clarifier, we won't be done by then.
Y'all never seen this, these big track saws and whatnot that they saw through concrete with. It's pretty cool to see. Pretty process, and that company's doing a pretty impressive job out there. Not the first time they've done work with us.
The amount of rebar that gets delivered to these sites, if you've never seen it, is an astounding amount of rebar.
Every piece gets counted.
Every piece gets counted. That's right.
Really?
Let's see. All right, so another good one and good visible project we got going on is our elevated storage tank rehab, Glynn Place Mall, which if you go out there, you'll see one of the logos up there. It should be another, that's a Joint Waters logo on one side, and on the more optimum side, we're sharing the space with the college, who's gonna have their logo up there here pretty quickly, so.
It will be pointed towards the Walmart intersection,
Yeah.
right there, because
That's the premium
although
view.
you can see the tank from the spur, there's trees in the way, and we're gonna get good visibility, so we're oriented it towards that Walmart intersection.
Yeah.
What's the lifespan on a tower like that?
15 to 20 years on the tank painting job.
Painting.
I mean, I meant the tower itself.
Yeah.
like,
Oh, tower?
If properly maintained.
As long as you maintain it and keep the paint, it'll, I mean, there's no reason it should last 100 years, you know?
Because even if you get in with little pittings and holes, you can just weld over it.
Yeah.
It's steel.
Yeah. That's it. Top left, you may not be able to tell what this is, but this is actually the stencil. They use Tyvek house wrap, and it's printed with the, and there's little tiny holes. They basically rub paint over that. It transfers through the holes, and it gives them something to connect the dots. I mean, it's pretty cool to see how they do that. But it's done by hand. I mean, you know, it's
Suspended in there.
suspended in the air, exactly. I got a lot of respect for those guys hanging
Yeah.
off the tanks in the air. So there's middle left right here, you'll see one of Chapman Technical Services inspectors there talking with one of the contractors. And just a lot of neat stuff going on. It's like a trapeze artist situation out there. All right. That concludes the pictures and the detail of all the projects. Of course, the pictures are just the ones that are out in motion in the field to some extent going on, but many more behind the scenes in design, different phases of concept and design. So, as always, detail for each one of the projects is over there all the way to the right. Gantt chart.
We are getting very close to bidding the Highway 17 North Pump Station, and also bidding out to purchase the RAS pumps for Academy Creek in advance of the actual construction contract being let due to lead time on those materials.
All right. And of course, the good old EVA sheet on the very tail end of this. And if there's any other questions.
I will say we did officially complete the phase 1 of the Academy Creek project. That contract has been closed out. Contractor has been paid, retainage has been paid out. We're just waiting on record drawings.
Good report, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Anybody else have any other comments or questions? Meeting's adjourned.